I've been selling on Teepublic for years now, and I've seen a consistent history or pattern with the way that I'm receiving sales on Teepublic. And I kind of wanted to share what people can expect when they're starting their journey on Teepublic. I'm making this video right now. There are some people who've probably been selling on Teepublic for years, and there's probably been some people that maybe literally just started. So I kind of want to share with you. And my approach when I first started Teepublic was vastly different than majority of people's. To put things into consideration, I was working on Redbubble before I ever joined Teepublic. And when I did join Teepublic, I had about a good 5,000 designs that were already successful on Redbubble that I put on Teepublic, which helped really catapult my start on my first Teepublic account. Now, granted, on my first Teepublic account, I did something that I actually don't recommend people doing now, especially if they're using social media, which is I put a whole bunch of different niches on one account on Teepublic. I don't necessarily recommend it. It's not the worst thing in the world. Obviously, there's worse things out there. It's not the worst, but if you're using social media, then it wouldn't make sense to do so. But anyways, I kind of want to use this chart here to illustrate what you can predict with the sales for a typical Teepublic seller. The first thing that I would recommend to you is if you have success in any other platform like Redbubble, like Merch by Amazon, these one-off design type platforms, then I highly recommend you focus on uploading those images first to Teepublic. Now, once again, you should probably go watch my video that I've kind of talked about with print on demand a little bit earlier, where I kind of compared each platform and what designs I would post where. I wouldn't, for example, take a disc plate design and put it on a Teepublic shirt or a Teepublic in general. I wouldn't put it there because I know it's probably not going to sell there. And more importantly, it's probably, it's like a poster style. It's not ideal. So it depends what platform you're coming from and what content you're putting in there, and that does make a difference. So let's just once again go after this advice, like I'm telling you, take your most profitable designs from those sites, put it on there. After that, what does everybody else deal with? And I'm going to illustrate that here. So most people on Teepublic, unfortunately, like for the first few months, they make zero money. The reason why is they're uploading designs that people are just not finding. That's just the end reality of it is. For months and months and months, they could potentially go on with no sales. Now, granted, it has to do with what the content that they're uploading. So niches that are really not being searched for, you're not going to make too many sales. But in general, this is kind of how it goes. What I tend to find is that if a design is selling, like, let's just say once a month, twice a month, 3 times a month, it's consistently going to do that, especially in niches that are a little bit less competitive. Now, what I tend to find as well is because my personal experience on this channel is a little bit different than most people's, because I have had to, unfortunately, and I kind of had to hide my private accounts. I do have public accounts that people know about, but my private accounts, I have had to hide them because, let's face it, copycatters exist. There are people that want to do absolutely no kind of creative work themselves, and they just kind of want to steal. If you're dealing with direct theft and stealing, your income is going to decrease. There's nothing you could do about it unless you, kind of basically report their accounts. You're going to have to do DMCA takedowns. I really hate doing them, but sometimes I might have to, especially if I see people who are like copying my designs, especially pixel for pixel, or they'll take screenshots of my designs and clear the background, then post it on their designs. For those, I have to take action on them. You're only going to experience that literally after you start making a consistent and noticeable amount of sales, because your competitors are going to notice you. This is just the nature of Teepublic. Anybody who's kind of consistently sold there, consistently knows that after you generate a decent amount of sales consistently every single month, then you're going to start to notice that your sales might start to dip a little bit because people are starting to take the market share from you. You don't need to make thousands of designs to make a lot of money on Teepublic. This is where people get things wrong. Of course, quantity helps, but it's not a requirement at all. In fact, sometimes it could actually hurt your account because if you're uploading in very, very high quantities with very low variation in terms of designs, you can actually be marked down in tiers for Teepublic. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm always a promoter of uploading more and more and more and doing as much effort as possible. I'm never going to sit here and say, yeah, don't do work. Like, I'm not going to say that. I'm always going to tell you to do more. However, with niches on Teepublic, like I said, your account is excuse me, not niches, but your account is open to review at any time. And if you're uploading different designs that have very low variation, you're going to be put into that lower tier, which you're obviously going to have more fees. Your sales are going to decrease dramatically. You might even be de-indexed off of the search, so that can hurt you, okay? And if you want to learn more about like how I personally get indexed with all my accounts, I'll leave a link in the description to my Teepublic course. Obviously, don't join just for that reason, but Autopilot Passive Income, Teepublic course. Basically, I share everything I know about Teepublic in the course around tagging, algorithms, keywords, etc. I'll leave that link in the description. But don't necessarily, obviously, join just for learning how to get into the marketplace. That's not the only reason. There's other reasons, keywords, etc. But anyways, when you're uploading to Teepublic, kind of let's talk about what you can expect from a sales standpoint. And relatively in the beginning, right, when you actually start, this is past the point of no sales. So past that point, it could take a few months for most people. I'm not saying for everybody. I'm not even saying for my experience, because once again, my experience was very different in the start, especially with my first account. But then again, I have multiple accounts, so it really doesn't matter. But I'm going to use this chart to illustrate it. So let's just say after you start getting some sales, you clock in, let's say 5 sales, okay? This is the first time. First month that you start getting sales. Let's just say it's a good month, whatever. Now, to be clear, 5 sales might be a large amount for the first time you ever get any sales in 1 month, because that's going to equate to like what, $10 or something, right? $12. It depends on what you sell, obviously, but you get my point. The next month, you can get somewhere around there. It's going to be close to the same. It could be 3, right? The month after that could be 4, right? The month after that could be 5. But you're going to be hovering around the same thing pretty much every month, unless there's some sort of consistent new work that's being uploaded in those niches where you've know for a fact that they're lower competition or they have high search demand or something like that. It's probably going to stay relatively the same or close to the same. You could plus or minus, let's say 30%, okay? Now, I can say 30%. It seems like a big swing because that's a 60% differential, but 30% plus or minus is relatively small compared to the amount of sales that you're going in ratio to the amount of sales you're going to generate in the beginning. In the beginning, you're not going to generate that many sales, right? So you might have months where you're generating close to the same amount, but it's not going to really shoot up until you experience a point where, you, like I said, you've hit some golden niche opportunities where you're starting to make more money. And this has happened to pretty much everybody I know who sells on there. What happens is over a little bit period of time, you're going to hit a period where you have a shoot up like in one shot. It could be somebody bought a bulk order. It could be, maybe you upload new designs that really tap into a certain niche. It could be a variety of things, but it can lead your sales to double or even triple. So if you're normally making, let's say 5 sales, you can end up closing out 12 sales that month, 13 sales, etc., right? 14 sales. And what happens is those past months, right, like right here, they now look small compared to that month that you've had. The month after it, you're not going to have the same number, right? But you're going to have normally higher than you've had normally before. So you might not have 12 sales, right? You might have, for example, 6. 6 or 7 is like higher than what you would normally expect, right? So if you were normally expecting around 5 plus or minus, like I said, 30%, you could have a little bit more next time. Now, what that would look like from a chart standpoint is that your new low or your new numbers that you can kind of look at is that new number. So for the next few months, it could be, let's say 7, once again, plus or minus that 30%, right? You might have an 8, right? A month with like another 6 again, right? Let me go ahead and type that in here. 7, let's just say you might have a 6 here, right? And then what happens is pretty soon after that, you look by and you've seen about 9 months pass. And I'm just using numbers here, like 5 sales, 4 sales, just to kind of illustrate numbers. For people, it might be different. For people, it might be $40 in sales, $100, $300. It's just different for everybody, right? It depends on the size of your account. But when we start to enter Q4, you have this consistency of growth, all right? And this is kind of, I've stressed this so many times, but like, guys, we work for Q4. Q4 is the golden opportunity for a print-on-demand seller. Everything else is just a bonus. That's the way I look at it, right? Month 1 through essentially, let's just say 8, right, is just bonus money. It's free money. Q4 is when I really, really expect the sales to pop in. So in Q4, that month that was my high month before, that's going to be like kind of my new low in Q4, right? So I might have clock in at 14, right? For the last month, I might clock in at 15, right? And then 16. And then for the last month, I might clock in at 20, something like that. But what happens after Q4, right? And like I said, you have those last 3 months to really take advantage of that. Obviously, 12 months in a year, you divide that by 4, 3 months. You have now a new situation going on where your old low from the beginning of the year was like at the 4 or 5 standpoint, right? But now, since you've reached these highs and your algorithm has kind of changed, you're ranking a little bit higher, your new low is not going to be 5 or 6 or anything like that. It's going to be somewhere in between here and here, right? So now you've leveled up. Before it might have been 7 or 8. Now you might be looking at 10 as the low. Now it's dramatically less than the Q4, but that's normal. This is what you should expect. What really ideally it should be is that next Q1 after Q4 should be somewhere in between this section right here. So somewhere in between Q4 and here. If it's not there, then you got some work to do, right? You could say you got lucky, whatever, but you got some work to do, right? But that's essentially how it starts, and then it repeats the cycle. So it would keep going. So plus or minus that 30%, and then you would have certain months, depending on your workload or depending on luck, because trust me, it does happen, where your sales will shoot up. I've had it happen before. Like, I've had days where I'll look at my Teepublic account and it will just raise out of nowhere 12 sales, like in an order. How does that happen? There are people who buy bulk orders. It does happen. I'm not saying it happens often, but it happens. There's always something positive to look to. If let's say somebody buys a bulk order of pin buttons, let's just say, pin buttons don't generate that much profit. But I look at it and I say, okay, well, at least the design is ranking a little higher now because of the sales, right? And I'll get more sales later down the road because of it. Pin buttons don't sell often, but you get my point. I'm just illustrating the fact that something that's low profit can sell. Stickers, for example, whatever. And that's kind of what I've seen with Teepublic, is Teepublic sales have been relatively consistent for me. Now, once again, I'm referring to most people's experience when they're going to go to Teepublic. My experience was not this in the start. My very, very first Teepublic store, like I said, I took all of the designs that were high performers, which were about like close to 5,000 of them, and I slowly started uploading them to a Teepublic account. And I didn't upload them right away, obviously. It took some time, but I had massive success my first month on Teepublic because I was uploading designs that were already successful on Redbubble, which, by the way, some of those designs existed on Merch by Amazon prior to that. But once again, later down the road, I lost my Merch by Amazon account. My fault. I was doing some I was testing different rejections, things like that. I was getting way too many rejections on the account, whatever. The point here is that I got sidetracked telling you about my rejections. But anyways, the point here is that this is most people's experience. Most people don't have a prior list or prior history of selling on other platforms, where they can tap into and they know for a fact that it's successful. If I were you, if you had sold other stuff on these one-off designs, I would absolutely tap into that. I would look at different designs that have sold well for myself, for in your case, for yourself, on other platforms. So, for example, if you have a Merch by Amazon account, you have a Redbubble account, look at those designs that have sold and put them on TeePublic. Give them a shot. Now, I want to put things into consideration here because people might take this the wrong way. If you have a design, let's just say on Merch by Amazon, that has sold twice, and you've collectively had 6 sales on your account, and you're looking to make a whole lot of money on TeePublic, you can expect about the same numbers in the same duration, maybe even less on TeePublic. It's not like you're going to come to TeePublic and you're going to, break through and you're going to make thousands of sales when on a larger platform you haven't reached that. That really doesn't happen. Like for example, if I made, let's say, 100 sales off of one design on Redbubble in a course of a year, that equates to about 12 sales a month, right? Close to that. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact, but maybe a little bit more, 15, 20, depending on the month, right? It's up and down. But that means I'm getting, let's just say, a sale once every 3 days, 2 days on that design. If I do that, guys, and I take that same design and I go to TeePublic, it's not going to all of a sudden generate 700 sales on TeePublic. It could generate the same amount on Redbubble, but it's not going to generate much, much, much more. So it's not going to generate 400, 600, 800 sales a year. It's not going to do that, at least most of the time. And we're talking about what's probable, not what's possible. Anything is possible. It's possible that I could be Tony Stark, but it's not probable. So we're talking about what's probable, not what's possible. Of course, anything can happen in the print-on-demand world. Anything can happen, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about what's likely. So in terms of what's likely is you're going to have slow months in the beginning, and you're going to gradually build. It's relatively consistent, like I said. It's not really volatile. There are business models out there that are extremely volatile. I'll give you an example. Advertising. So advertising is extremely volatile. I can come up with a really good ad campaign for a certain design that I put on a Shopify store or whatever kind of store, and it can create tens of thousands of sales in a week. But then it might die later down the road. So there's no consistency there. But TeePublic, in my opinion, is relatively consistent with the sales. The only thing that could really bring you down, but once again, marginally over time, is when people start copycatting, taking from you, things like that. But, there's only one way to deal with those, and that's to erase the problem. So that's really it. But yeah, hopefully this video was helpful for all the people who are selling on TeePublic, need more guidance, maybe just getting started. If you are getting started, like I said, check out the course. It could help you out. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you guys for watching. Peace out. Bye. All right. See you soon.